Welcome to Enterprise Design's Industry Insights, where we identify key topics in the commercial real estate industry. I'm Ann Weston, Director of Design Services.
And I'm Jessica Green, Director of Client Services. For this series, we're discussing market trends with Dallas-based commercial real estate professionals.
Well, thank you for joining us. Today we have Dylan Burkle and Nina Toby. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us. We're excited.
Great. So our first question, we're going to kind of do this a little bit more personal, get to know you guys and what you're doing. So our first question is, can you tell us a little bit about your role at Pillar Commercial, how long you've been in the industry, and how you came to your current role?
So I've been at Pillar now for 9 years. I head up our leasing team, and Nina works alongside me as well. So I've been there my entire career. Started right out of college. I was actually one of my parents' friends, family friend, went to dinner with him, and he was like, "What do you want to do when you're out of college?" And I was playing baseball all the time. "What are you going to do when you're done playing baseball?" It's like, "I'm going to play baseball forever." Never happens. And I had a professor in college that was a real estate broker, and all of his stories and the stuff with his daily job and ideas and stuff I thought were just really interesting. And so I knew that was something I wanted to get into. So I said, "Hey, if I don't play baseball," to this family friend, and I would like to get in commercial real estate. He's actually ended up being a full floor tenant in one of Manny's buildings, a building that Pillar owned at the time. And he said he was about to do a renewal. He said, in my amendment, I'm going to put that Manny has to meet with you for lunch. Just as a joke, but Manny actually did meet with me, and I don't think Manny meant it, but he was like, "Hey, when you're done playing baseball, give me a call." And I called Manny a year and a half later. I was like, "Hey, I'm done playing baseball." Actually, I've never sent him a text. And he was like, "That's great." But yeah, they brought me in and said, "We'll give you a 90-day kind of test run and see if this works out for you, works out for us." And I've been there 9 years. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
That's still their connection.
It's crazy how it works.
Hopefully, he's going to write it in the lease too. Even better.
Yeah.
So this, I actually just hit my 2-year mark at Pillar and as the industry. Thank you. Also through connections. It was actually somebody through Dylan, mutual connection with Dylan. And we were at Topgolf just hanging out. And Dylan told me, "If you know anyone like you who's looking for a job in commercial real estate, let me know." And at the time he didn't know I was looking. So texted him that night and I was like, "Hey, so I'm me and I'm looking for a job." So it just sounded like an industry I wanted to be in, and met with Manny, and now I'm in.
Yeah, she called me and was like, "So I found someone like Nina," and her name was Nina.
Like,
so they're me.
Yeah.
I love that. Love for connections. Well, kind of getting to that, what keeps you in this industry? And I'll start out with you and go to Dylan. So
Dylan and I were actually talking about this earlier, and something that brought me to it was how challenging I knew it was going to be. And I feel like there's always going to be a challenge in commercial real estate, and it's ever changing. And being able to do it in Dallas, I think, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a day-to-day. Everything's different. Every deal is different. Every deal changes within the hour. Takes a certain individual to do what we do, and those people can't do just about anything else. So I don't think it's funny. We go into our office, and a lot of the guys and girls there are like, "I don't want to do what you do, and I don't want to do it."
yeah.
So I think that's the best way I can put what keeps us interested in it. And it is just that kind of daily grind, daily change. And
I do like they say it does take a certain type of person to be in this industry. And it's just it is a fun industry. It's very relationship based, but it is challenging at the same time. So you're constantly, working through those and
always learning something.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the main thing.
Yeah, type of person all day. So it's refreshing to not just deal with the same thing every day.
And especially now, I feel like things are ever evolving and, really, really changing at an exponential rate. So it's really interesting to see everything that's happening.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like we have, bi-weekly calls with all of our different landlords, and they'll say, "Well, 30 days ago, 60 days ago, you said this was what the market was doing." I'm like, Yeah, that was true.
That was true.
It's totally different. So it's especially after COVID and in the last probably year, everything changed a lot quicker.
It does. It's hard to predict what's going to be next.
Yeah.
So quickly.
So, building on that, how do you navigate building purchases and support new owners breaking into the Dallas market? I know you talked a lot about Dallas. I think we're all very grateful to be here because it is a thriving market. So how do you support those owners that are breaking into Dallas?
Yeah, I'd say in the last few years, there have been more and more people that are trying to break into the Dallas market because it's one of the hottest markets in the country.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And it's definitely difficult. I mean, it's so competitive and it relies a lot on trust because you have to get creative on all the deals that are purchased. So I would say on a daily basis or weekly basis, it's really maintaining contact with our investors and owners that work outside of the state and just keeping them up to date on what's going on so that when they have a creative idea, they trust that what we're giving them is not just, hey, we really want to lease this building and come by it so we can do that. We want them to feel like there's truly a partnership there. And sometimes I think it's even when we get the calls from groups that want to buy something that would be a great reason signing up, but knowing what we know, knowing it's probably not the best idea for them or it doesn't really fit what they're looking for, and building the trust that way with them that it's, as much as I would love to lease this 1 million square foot portfolio that you got, it
doesn't align
in your best interest to do so. And I think we've built a lot of relationships doing that as well. So kind of just to answer your questions, it's just kind of keeping in contact, keeping them up to date with what we're seeing in the market and having kind of a unique, relationship with them that way where it's not about specific building they own, it's just kind of market wide and we're keeping them in the loop.
And that transparency.
Yeah.
No, it's not very sound. Awesome. So what are the most common issues that you see with buildings that were initially constructed for a single user and now are being multi-tenanted?
Let me take some. I feel like I've done a couple of ones. We were talking about this today as well, because we do have some buildings that, that kind of the class B product that was built in the 80s for single tenant with 50,000 foot floor plates and a conference room that seats 100 and maybe like a deli or lounge area that seats 200 or 300, right? Because it's made for one employer to come in. It's just difficult right now because the rental rates and things that go along with those buildings aren't matching up to the cost it's going to take to fix that. I mean, you guys do a great job at it as well. Just like we could team up with someone and come up with a great concept, but how much is it going to cost? How much does it cost to get someone in the building? 50,000 foot floor plates, it's hard to break those up and let tenants still have windows and not just have an interior box or, we just did a deal where we're updating the restrooms on one of those little restroom tabs. They're like 3 times the size of a normal restroom on floor. So it's really difficult right now to show someone that for what they're going to spend to do it, they're going to get that out of it. And we just aren't seeing a whole lot of back office things right now. And so it really requires that kind of back office. It used to take bigger blocks of space that we still see in the marketplace.
Right. I mean, also helping them have a vision too. If they walk into a space that was meant for one user, it's hard for them to see, how do we break this up?
Right. Absolutely.
And I think, a lot of those larger buildings are in, not in like the downtown area. Like the downtown area, a lot of those buildings are already going to be updated. They're already going to have the amenities. And, I think that there is some aspect to those larger floor plate buildings that the ones that are updated, the ones that, have taken that first step, I think at one point, we're going to see a change and we're going to see that those, start to have a lot more traction over the ones that are not updated. So, there's, things that we can do to help ownership, like, hey, if you make the right investment, make sure that you're not doing CapEx regret and something that like just isn't going to free you the yield, but do something now. Whereas, if everything is trajectorying up, then, later on, hopefully you can come in and get a bunch of tenants because you're the first person that did this.
Right. And I'd say like any ground up development conversations that we are in, everyone wants to go after the big user and put them in the new bright and shiny building. But every time I'm in those meetings, it's okay. If it's a big user this way, show me what it looks like with no one bigger than 3,000 feet on this floor now. In a planning that way, or like we need to be able to park 4 per 1,000, but how can you convert the garage into a building, or how can you like pull back the garage, a couple floors of the garage, and change the way those are used in 20 years when we're going to be flying work.
I was about to say, like, it's great that it sped up all of these conversations more than it did, obviously a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And so now, like, we're thinking so way ahead of the game. And so that just puts a lot of pressure too, and a lot of like decision-making stress on like how far do we need to go with this?
Yeah.
But it is that are smart, because we are in an ever-changing world and things change, like you just said, in 60 days. Yeah. Something new. So, to be able to pivot like that is a good thing. So
then what are some of the most common challenges you face when leasing commercial properties?
I mean, to me, I feel like one of the biggest challenges is how long it's taking. Ever since COVID, I think everyone's a little nervous on, do we sign a long-term deal? Do we take a bunch of space and want to grow into? Do we just take what we need now? And so in turn, I think everything's just taking a little longer, which doesn't sit right with owners. But I'd say for me, I think that's the biggest thing I've noticed.
Yeah, across the board, I think it's just managing expectations, no matter who's talking to or what part of the deal it is. I mean, it's do you have prospects, right? And it's like, okay, well, how long have we actually had to sign it, right? Like, and then it's from tour stage to space plan stage, from that to bidding stage. Why does it cost this much? And so it always costs that much, right? How long is it going to take you to lease sign? Why don't they want to pay this rate? It's just literally managing expectations all the way across the board. They fluctuate. Sometimes the landlord feels like they're in the driver's seat. Sometimes the tenant does. And it's getting everyone to the finish line of the deal. That's the hardest part right now.
And I feel like it goes back to the relationship point that we were talking about earlier. Certain owners care about certain things. So remembering how to use that to our leverage.
it's different. Yeah. How about lease terms within that? Has it just been steady as far as like still the typical, create signing longer term leases, or is that a harder push?
It's last 30 or 60 days.
Yeah, I was like,
I would say in the last 30 to 60 days, we've seen that landlords are more flexible in regarding term and space. And they're giving on that in order to get rate and or I have the tenant pay for some stuff out of pocket. And so an example I feel like I've been used a lot lately is we got to get several buildings with different ownership groups that all agreed there might be a tenant that's downsized and they're in the middle of a block of space. Well, in 2019, we would have never let a tenant sit in the middle of a block of space, right? Because it makes the rest of it unleasable. And now there's like, hey, if you want to do a 1-year deal in the middle of this block, we'll figure it out in a year, right? And just keep the cash flow going. Isn't a recession coming or something like that? Let's just get through it and get to the next step. And tenants are willing to even say, hey, we'll pay to move our IT to build the demise wall if you let us do this. So there's starting to be a change there regarding term. And we're also seeing groups, there's like, we know we want to lock this space in now before rates go up even more, because construction costs have gone up so much, rates have to go up. And landlords just aren't going to do the deal. So they're locking in 10-year terms before it's too out of control.
Right. That's a really good point.
So,
okay. So what are the biggest differences in capital improvements between the Class A plus buildings versus other class buildings in Dallas submarkets, especially with all of the competitiveness of like putting a bunch of amenities into buildings? So
I feel like there is a good list of amenities that are needed in Class A and AA properties these days. I would say a fitness center, tenant lounge, shared conference room. We have a golf simulator in one of our buildings. I feel like the list goes on. Grab and go deli for any type of cafe or deli of some sort.
yeah, I feel like we can talk about this too, because we do have buildings that have like tenant lounge is so broad, right? And so, or like a deli or grab and go deli is again very broad. Like we see, I feel like the quasi coffee shop is what's becoming more popular in the Class A versus just the true grab and go. Like there's just something to a manned station of like, you might just get your espresso or a coffee, and they do have a grab and go sandwiches that never stop making. That has more of a Class A feel to it than just, I got like the Starbucks pre-made scan. No one even talked to me this morning. There's a reason coffee shops try to interact with each person that comes in and try to remember their name, because it has some feel to it. And just having that person there, I think, does that. As well as, I would say one back in the West, and the perfect example of when we went through our tenant interviews, we asked the same question to them is, what amenities do you like? So there's a gym, so fitness center, golf simulator, tenant lounge, and shared conference.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say 90% of them said the tenant lounge, which I thought was interesting. But because I'm thinking tenant lounge as in this is a spot to like sit down and eat lunch, it was more of like a nice like living room space, like kind of like what we're in right now, where you can reserve it and do a happy hour or something like that, versus just gonna watch Family Feud and eat my lunch and go back to the office. So I think like scaling those up to the next level and having that little extra touch is what's the big difference between Class B and Class A. But you still need to be able to check the box and have them if you don't want to pay up to
Exactly. I loved your comment about like the niche coffee shop, because everybody loves coffee. Everybody needs their fix in the morning. They don't just want their Keurig from the office.
Right.
They do want their espresso, their specialty drink. And if you can combine that with some type of like food convenience plus other convenience, that really kind of elevates it. And, maybe you don't have like the full cafe in addition to that. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but that you at least have like a really niche restaurant or, something that you can still get, full food service, but something that really is that drawing factor. Everything these days is kind of that Instagram moment.
Right.
So we're seeing that a lot on the design side. So, it really needs to be drawing that people can, take that picture, post it on Instagram, post it on TikTok, that, you really do have that attraction.
Well, and to your point, the hospitality aspect of it, that's what makes you really go to the next level.
Yeah, even always out of like our security guards. I mean, we ask them to be at their desk in the morning when people come in. Just there's something to that, like, hey, so how are you? That like that you have that interaction. It makes you feel like you're stepping into work and then you're leaving or whenever. It's like, all right, like have a good evening.
And it's not like a concierge.
Yeah,
right. It makes your day, honestly, like whenever, especially if I'm walking into our office building, like our security guards there, like they're fantastic. And they're like, you actually get to know them too. Right. And it's nice. So building that aspect into it.
Okay. So I know this is a loaded question, but do you guys see any future challenges for the commercial real estate industry in Dallas?
So I think there's going to be a couple issues. First issue is going to be that there's not any new buildings being developed. Let's call it from. They'll probably finish up the next few months, and there's nothing that's going to kick off for the next probably 18. And you're going to start, but there's still going to be a demand for new product. Everyone wants newer and nicer, right? And they want good location. And so you're gonna see there's gonna be something that happens there. I don't know what it's gonna be, but there's gonna be a problem. And the demand it might be that companies coming into Dallas have nowhere to go that's new and nice, or even kind of like that second tier new and nice, because other companies are moving out of those spaces to the next biggest best thing. So I think you could see some issues with that in the next, call it probably 2025, 26, but there's just going to be a dead period. And I think in the Class B market, you're running into, the market was really hot and everyone was buying and selling kind of 2015 to 2019. In all those kind of 5-year hold periods with extensions for landlords are coming up. And the market's not at its best right now for acquisitions and selling. And all those landlords were underwriting deals to be like the tenant improvement packages were $20, $25 and thought that was a lot of money to give up when I was 50, 60.
At least. Yeah.
Just to get a tenant into like, because these spaces aren't second gen anymore. They're Rams to fit, right?
I like to put rough second gen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Broker said, can you send me the conditions? Like, she's like, is this rough or like kind of rough? But you want to be honest, right? And you don't want to waste people's time. But if all, if the landlord's only making $50 total on the space over a 5-year period, how are they going to put in $50 into the space? They're not going to do it. So there's going to have to be, and construction costs aren't just going to go down. Just those guys are making the money with or without. And there's spec suites, there's all kinds of stuff that they're doing. So there's got to be some kind of movement there where it's the rates have to go up or tenants have to start coming out of pocket. One or the other has to happen. So,
Were you still seeing a lot of lease extensions?
yeah, I mean, there's
I would say it's more lease extensions than new leases right now. We've been talking about that specifically in the last 30 days, just that there is activity, but it's all that we already have just extending out, which I think is smart on their part. But for sure.
yeah, it's 90% is probably extensions and expansions.
Oh, wow. That's good.
Yeah.
At least they're not taking less work.
Right. But then in that same turn, instead of like we're losing our new deals to them renewing, it's not like we're losing it to another building.
So how has the development of technology in the commercial leasing industry created efficiencies for leasing?
We talked about that today. Also, because this morning, like we have weekly construction calls and I was going through a plan and just being able to share my screen with our construction manager. I mean, things as small as that, I feel like go a really long way. Also had a space plan meeting in person today that probably could have been via Teams or on computers. So I feel like that's a good depiction.
Yeah, I mean, it was I personally love the space plan meeting with like the paper and the pen, like all the different colors. Like it's fun, but it takes a lot of time. So, I mean, we were in the car today as longer than the space plan meeting itself.
Right. Spent more time driving than in meeting.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think even just technology plus COVID making everyone's shift to like Teams calls work for certain things, don't work for everything, but there is an aspect to it's in what we do. I mean, we're all in the city all at any time. So being able to still have meetings that are important, but be able to do them virtually is very helpful.
Yeah, and definitely helps with like time efficiency and, that you can go above and beyond on other aspects of your job.
And I mean, there was stuff even like for a marketing standpoint that all the brokers knew about, but we were always lazy. We were kind of like, hey, if no one does any of this new stuff, then no one has to. Like, I mean, like virtual tours and renderings are just getting better and better. And then there's faster turnarounds. People are coming up with maybe better ways to get it done. VR stuff. I mean, it's all crazy. You can direct someone to something that doesn't exist and get a better idea.
Speaking of that, when you mentioned virtual tours, how often do you have clients that want to see that, but then they actually want to go see the space too itself?
So
that's interesting to me.
I would say that if they ever, it's the virtual tour is pretty slow right now. There's not a whole bunch of stuff that we see that's coming in town. I think what people want to see it.
Yes, right.
Or I'd say too, I think they're narrowing it down more before they go out to tours. So instead of reaching out to 10 different buildings and wanting to see virtual tours for all of them, they're going to 3 and they're all 3 that they really like based on all of the other facts. They just more so not wanting to waste their time.
Right.
In a weird way, I just thought about this. In a weird way, I think our most successful marketing play right now is if we build, say, 15,000 feet of spec suites, getting as many brokers individually through there as possible, not broadly, just come walk it. Mm-hmm. That way they can tell their client that they've seen it. And that's kind of the virtual tour of like, I've seen it, it looks good. Come see it versus like you need to walk, read it, click on the circle and keep going. Like it works, but if the broker has seen it, they can kind of relay that virtual tour to them.
Exactly. Well, and in talking about spec suites, where are you seeing kind of the level and design for spec suites kind of heading?
I would say it depends on the market. The spec suites we have up north are a little more warmer, more residential, whereas the ones uptown, downtown are a little more techy, more modern, industrial. So, I mean, I would say it depends on the market
Yeah.
or the type of tenant.
Because we tell our landlords, look, where I just like to tell them spec suites are the only way you can control time and cost. And so it depends on it. It's totally up to like, what can you afford at that point? You're not saying, what does the tenant want? It's like, we'll give you the Cadillac version, but we might scale it down to the top version later. Like, we don't need to go floor to ceiling backsplash with, hard ceilings throughout. We can scale it back because to suit what do you want. But just convincing them that they can correctly, that it's time, going control time and cost is a spec suite route.
How quickly are you seeing spec suites move up the market once they're done? Or are you seeing that, maybe even get leased prior to that being done?
So I feel like there's cycles of the year, right? And I feel like probably last Thursday was when we hit it's after spring break and people are realizing that they're on summer trips coming up. So they need to get their lease done before the summer. So I feel like spec suites now are moving a lot faster. We have tours on them, demand for them. Than we did 30 days ago, when people had plenty of time before my lease expires in June.
Right.
And a year ago, there just wasn't a big inventory of spec suites. People hadn't done them yet, so they were going a lot faster because there was just supply and demand, right? It was different. So they are still what leases. They just don't go as fast as they would this time last year.
So our final question is, what are some of the best resources that your A&D partners can provide for you in regards to commercial real estate?
Showing people what the space is going to look like is the hardest thing. People don't have it, right? So specs was, again, time and money, but they also, the tenant can walk in and say, I like it, or they don't. And so having groups that you can go to a social media platform and just pull it up right there and say, hey, this is something our design team has done. It might not be in our building, but they did it in a different building. Or I love it all the time. I'll use like Elizabeth Toll. And so what's your, do you have like a color palette for this? And they're usually like, I have no idea what you're talking about. They're like, okay, I'll pick some for you. Like, and then, hey, here's 5 spaces we've done. I think that's super helpful. There's questionnaires that we kind of put together in working with you guys.
So that's super helpful.
If a tenant has no idea what they need and they aren't represented by a broker, which honestly, we love if people are represented by brokers because it costs so much with just that initial, like, what do you need? What do you want? What are you looking for? Thing. But those questionnaires, I think, are helpful because it just allows that process to go so much faster.
Right. Definitely trends too, knowing what everyone else is doing, what's popular. Right.
And just getting creative. Always to get, because just getting space, getting it done, not saying, you run into, there's always a code issue, but then always an exit separation issue with getting creative so the tenant can get what they want and we still do it the right ways.
Well, and I love that you mentioned Elizabeth Hall because she just recently issued a blog post on our website that talks about, the tenant and the kind of process of, from lease all the way through the project, which is really helpful for tenants that, just have no idea what entails in the project.
Right.
And, I love that she was able to write that, and it's very helpful. So take a look at our website. We check it out and then you resource.
Awesome.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. I've really enjoyed it.
Appreciate
it. Yeah, this is fun. And thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Enterprise Design's Industry Insights video podcast. Please follow us and subscribe to our channel or visit us on our website at enterprisedesign.com.
And look for our teaser video highlighting the next episode. We look forward to seeing you then.